Have you ever felt your heart break so deeply that all you wanted was to shut it down, to stop trusting, to stop loving ever again? If somewhere inside you there are old wounds that still ache sometimes, if there is a small corner in you that longs to be understood, to be soothed, to be loved again in a gentler and more mindful way, then this video is for you. Before we begin, you're invited to subscribe to Buddha's Loving Words and turn on the bell so that each day we still have the chance to meet each other again in the middle of all the noise of life. So that whenever your heart feels unsteady, you can simply open YouTube and have a few quiet minutes sitting with the Buddha's words, like a small resting place made just for your heart. Please stay until the end of this video to let something gentle settle inside you, just for you. When the heart breaks, love grows wiser. There are moments when our heart breaks and no one can hear the sound. It's not something collapsing on the outside, but a crack deep inside. Someone important suddenly isn't there anymore. A relationship we thought was forever ends halfway. A belief we once leaned on falls apart. On the outside, we still walk, still smile, still go to work. But inside, there is a huge broken piece we don't know where to put. It's so easy to conclude, that's it. No more love, no more trust, no more hope. But under the light of the Buddha's teachings, a broken heart is not the final end of love. On the contrary, it is the place where love has a chance to grow up. A broken heart does not mean we stop loving. It is where love is pushed to let go of its illusions, to loosen its clinging, and to step more deeply into understanding and compassion. In the Buddha's time, there was a woman named Pattakara. She was once the daughter of a wealthy family. She ran away from home with the man she loved, willing to leave everything behind to build a small happiness in the countryside. It seemed like life had finally become peaceful, but then storms came one after another. During her first pregnancy, on the way back to her parents' home, she gave birth in the middle of a rainy night, out on an empty field. Not long after things had settled, she became pregnant a second time. Again, she set out on the road, and again gave birth along the way. On their journey back, her husband died in an accident, and both of her young children were swept away before her eyes. One by floodwaters, one by a wild animal. By the time she reached the city gate, she heard that her family home had just collapsed in a violent storm, and that her parents and siblings had all died beneath the rubble. In a very short time, everyone she loved, everything she had clung to for so long, was gone from her life. Pattakara's heart shattered completely. She lost her mind, wandering without any sense of shame, hair disheveled, clothes torn. People who saw her chased her away, mocked her, but the pain inside her was something no one could see. One day, Pattakara wandered into a place where the Buddha was giving a Dharma talk. Everyone wanted to drive her out, afraid she would disturb the assembly, but the Buddha said, "Let her stay." As she came closer, with wild eyes and trembling limbs, the Buddha looked at her with great gentleness and called out, "My sister." Just those two simple words, "my sister," were like a rope pulling her back to herself. It had been so long since anyone had addressed her with such warmth and respect. She froze, then sat down, tears streaming down her face. The Buddha did not deny her pain. He let her cry. He let her pour out all the losses she had endured. Then he taught her about impermanence, that everything formed by conditions must eventually fall apart. This body is impermanent. Houses, husbands, children, parents, all are subject to the same law. He did not speak of impermanence to blame her, but to shine light into the darkness she was trapped in. It is not only you who have lost a husband, lost children, lost parents. His teaching was like this. All beings are walking together across the same field of impermanence. You are not being punished alone. You are walking the very path that everyone must one day walk. In the light of the Dharma, Pattakara's broken heart began to take on a new shape. The pain did not disappear, but it was now placed within the vast context of birth, aging, sickness, and death. She no longer saw herself as the only woman robbed of everything she loved. She began to see herself as one wave in the great ocean of life, where no one can hold on to any role or relationship forever. From that broken place, she gave rise to the aspiration to go forth as a nun, taking refuge in the Buddha and practicing the path. Later, Padakara became a renowned nun, known for her deep mindfulness and discipline, a refuge for countless women lost in their own suffering. Looking at Padakara, what do we see? We see a heart broken to the very limit, but not stopping at madness and hatred. Because she met the Dharma, those cracks became openings where light could enter. The pain of losing those she loved became the material for a deeper understanding of impermanence, and her heart softened toward the suffering of others, not just her own. From someone who had lost everything, she became a person who offered a path of peace to countless other hearts. There, love was no longer just a clinging emotion wrapped around my person, but a wide, flowing stream, aware of how fragile everything is, and therefore more grateful, more tender. There is another story from the Buddha's time that shows us a very different kind of broken heart. The story of Angulimala. He was once a notorious killer, a man who murdered without hesitation, wearing a garland of human fingers around his neck. Angulimala's heart was not broken by loss, but by madness, manipulation, and hatred. It had grown so hardened that human life meant nothing to him. But when he met the Buddha, something inside him began to crack. He chased after the Buddha through the forest, trying to kill him, running with all his strength, yet never able to catch up. Finally, he shouted, "Monk, stop!" The Buddha turned, calm and steady, and said, "I stopped a long time ago. It is you who have not stopped." That single sentence cut straight through his delusion. All his life he had been urged on by hatred, killing more people, collecting more fingers, believing that somehow this would prove his worth. But in truth, it had all been a wild chase after a crazy idea. The Buddha had stopped long ago, stopped in mindfulness, in understanding, in compassion. Angulimala, meanwhile, had been running and running, never once pausing to look into his own heart. Hearing the Buddha's teaching, Angulimala knelt down and asked to become a monk. But life did not erase his past in a single day. After ordaining, every time he went on alms round, villagers would recognize him, throw stones, curse him, beat him. Some days his whole body was covered in wounds, bleeding, his robe torn. On the way back to the monastery, hurting in both body and mind, Angulimala's heart broke open in another way. He saw with painful clarity the consequences of what he had done and the immense suffering he had brought to so many families. One day, returning badly beaten and bruised, he met the Buddha's compassionate gaze. The Buddha said, "You are now reaping painful results from many harmful actions in the past. Bear this suffering with a calm mind. Use these pains to see more deeply into the suffering of all beings and never go back to your old path again." From then on, each wound on his body became a reminder to let his heart open into understanding and compassion, instead of shrinking back into resentment. If we look deeply, we see that whether it is Padakara losing her husband, children, and parents, or Angulimala losing his illusion of himself, they both pass through the same doorway. The heart breaks open. But under the light of the Dharma, they do not stop at broken and destroyed. They go further toward broken and awakened. The cracks in the heart become places where wisdom and compassion can take root. In the teaching of the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha shows that suffering is not a strange accident, but an inevitable part of life. Who can walk through this world with a heart that is never scratched or wounded? The difference lies here. When the wound appears, do we run from it or dare to look at it in the light of mindfulness? If we only blame, run away, and shut down, that crack in the heart will harden into a heavy stone. But if we are willing to place it on the altar of practice, to breathe with it mindfully, we will slowly see that behind our pain, there is still a heart capable of loving. It just has not yet learned how to love wisely. A heart that has never been broken can love passionately, but often shallowly. A heart that has been shattered, if it knows how to practice, can love more deeply, appreciate more fully, and demand less. Because we have tasted loss, we become more gentle with what we still have. Because we have held our own wounds, we become softer toward the pain of others. This is the quiet maturity of love. Less, this is mine. Less, why is this happening to me? And more, everyone suffers like this. May we all suffer a little less. So when your heart is breaking, please remember, this is not a life sentence ending your ability to love. It may be the beginning of a new way of loving, deeper, more awake, and freer. Right in the crack itself, if there is the light of the Dharma, if there is the breath of mindfulness, a new heart is being born. A heart that knows it can be broken, but does not have to harden forever. Loss, an invitation to grow in how we see life. After the heart has broken, what usually comes next is the feeling of loss. Losing a person, losing a source of support, losing a beautiful image of ourselves, losing even our faith in life. In those moments, it's very easy to conclude, life is punishing me, I've been abandoned, I've been robbed. But under the light of the Buddha's teachings, loss is not a red stamp of punishment pressed onto our life. Many times, loss is just a quiet doorway, a gentle invitation. It is time for you to grow a little more in how you understand life and how you understand yourself. The Buddha never denied the pain of losing. He called it directly dukkha, suffering. Suffering of birth, aging, sickness, death. Suffering of loving each other and still having to part. Suffering of wanting and not getting what we want. The first noble truth is suffering. It means this pain is not just ours alone. It isn't some strange accident. It is part of the very nature of conditioned life. But if we stop there, we will feel like we're drowning. So right after the truth of suffering, the Buddha pointed out its causes, the possibility of its end, and the path of practice. Exactly here, loss begins to show its second face, not only as a wound, but as a teacher. In the Buddha's time, there was a very young novice monk who lived close to a great teacher. To him, his teacher was everything, a father, a shelter, a source of pride. Whatever he did, he looked toward his teacher, chanting, walking meditation, sweeping the yard, cooking rice. Everything followed his teacher's example. In his heart, there was a strong belief, as long as my teacher is here, I am safe. One rainy season, the teacher grew very ill. Even though the monks took turns caring for him, even with medicine, the body made of 4 elements still had to break down. The day his teacher passed away, the young novice felt lost in every direction. The person he had always leaned on was suddenly gone. Each time he stepped into the hall, he saw his teacher's empty seat, the alms bowl his teacher had used, the broom his teacher used to hold. Everything reminded him, your teacher is no longer here. His heart broke in the way a monastic heart breaks, not from romantic love, but from losing the greatest shade of protection in his life. One day, seeing him sitting in the garden crying, the Buddha walked over. The Buddha did not say, you're a monk, why are you still crying? He did not say, everything is impermanent, stop clinging. He simply asked, you love your teacher very much, don't you? The novice nodded, and the tears flowed even more. The Buddha continued, who do you think your teacher really is? The novice replied, he is the one who taught me everything, how to wear the robe, how to carry the alms bowl, how to chant, how to keep the precepts. The Buddha gently said, all that your teacher has given you, where is it now? The novice was confused. The Buddha helped him see, the way you wear your robe, the way you hold your bowl, the way you keep your precepts, the words he spoke whenever you were clumsy, all of that is now inside your own body and mind. Your teacher's physical body must follow the law of impermanence and fall apart. But the Dharma he lived and taught to you has not been lost. This loss hurts you, but it is also reminding you to come back and rely on what cannot be lost, the Dharma and the Sangha, instead of relying only on an outer form. From that day on, the novice began to change the way he saw things. He no longer only cried in front of his teacher's empty seat. He began to plant a quiet sentence into every step of walking meditation. I will continue the path my teacher wanted me to walk. The pain of losing his teacher was still there, but it now carried a new meaning. It forced him to grow out of dependence on one form and learn to stand on his own feet, not with hardness, but with continuity. In that case, loss was a silent invitation to move from outer refuge to inner refuge, into morality, concentration, and wisdom. There is another story about a wealthy lay follower whom we know as Anathapindika. He was famous for his generosity and his deep reverence for the Buddha and the Sangha. He spent a great amount of gold and silver to buy land and build the Jetavana monastery as an offering to the Buddha and the community of monks. In the early years, his business went smoothly. Wealth flowed in, so his offerings, though large, had not yet touched the deepest layer of his heart. Then came a period of serious hardship. Goods piled up unsold. Business partners went bankrupt. Income dried up. From a famously rich man, he fell into shortage and debt. People whispered, maybe he gave too much to the Buddha. That's why he ended up like this. Some even advised him, now is the time to think about your own family. Don't be foolish and keep giving to the monastery. But Anathapindika did not easily turn away. He still sincerely wanted to offer. Yet when he opened his storeroom, there were only a few belongings left. Quietly, he sold those last household items and used the money to buy a small amount of pure food to offer to the Buddha and the Sangha. That time he was moved to tears, not out of regret, but because for the first time he clearly saw, now, giving was no longer giving from the extra, but sharing what I also really need. The Buddha knew what had happened. He did not praise him as some kind of dramatic hero. He simply taught gently, when you have much wealth and you give, there is merit. When you have little and you still open your heart, that merit is even deeper. But what matters most is not the amount, it is the heart that does not cling. Losing money and property is not life punishing you. It is teaching you to see more clearly what you can truly rely on. Wealth comes and goes, but a generous heart and faith in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, if you don't let those be lost, are the greatest treasures you can have. After that difficult period, Anathapindika's wealth slowly recovered, but he himself said that the time he was empty-handed was when his faith and wisdom grew the fastest. Before that, he thought he was relying on the Dharma, but in truth, he was still leaning on his own richness. When loss swept through, his false supports were exposed. It hurt, but that very pain taught him to shift the center of his life to somewhere else, to a spacious heart, to mindfulness, to the nirvana the Buddha had pointed to. Looking at these stories, we see that loss has two faces. If we stop at the cut itself, we feel like a victim who has been robbed. If we look more deeply with the eyes of mindfulness, we see another layer. Loss is showing us what we held too tightly, what we believed was forever, but is in fact very fragile. That is the lesson of impermanence and non-self. The Buddha taught about all the things we usually call mine, this body, this feeling, this property, this loved one, this reputation. When any one of these is pulled out of our hand, we hurt to the core. But if we are willing to sit with that pain, we will hear a very deep question. Where have you placed your refuge by mistake? Do you want to grow beyond that place? Our mistake is not that we loved, trusted, or became attached. Love itself is something beautiful. But when we forget that everything is impermanent, We demand that love must mean holding on forever, never losing. Loss comes, first to shock us, but then, if lit by the Dharma, it becomes a mirror that shows us how we have been loving, how we have been clinging. A heart that has gone through loss and chooses to grow is very different from a heart that has lost and only shrinks back. The first kind of heart understands, every meeting is precious, but no meeting is guaranteed to last forever on the level of form. That heart lives more fully in each moment it can still be with someone. And when it is time to part, even though it hurts, it can still bow, still feel grateful, instead of only blaming. So each time we go through a loss, instead of only asking, "Why did life take this from me?" we can try another question. How is this loss inviting me to grow? What is it asking me to let go of, to see more clearly, to open inside my heart? That is how we step from the truth of suffering to the path, from drowning in the waves of life to learning to swim with the support of the Dharma. And when we begin to see loss as this kind of quiet invitation, we are ready for the next step. Not only accepting that something is gone, but daring to open our wound to the light of mindfulness, so that our grief no longer curls tightly around me and mine, but is guided back to become nourishment for understanding and for love. Let the gentle light of mindfulness touch your wounds. When loss has just passed through, our natural reflex is usually to cover it up as quickly as possible. We fill our days with work, conversations, entertainment, our phones, new plans, anything so we don't have to look directly at the place inside that is still bleeding. We think, if I just forget, it will be fine. Time will heal it. But through the Buddha's eyes, time alone is not enough. What truly heals is not forgetting, but the gentle light of mindfulness touching the wound, so it can be seen, can breathe, and can be held. The Buddha taught the 4 foundations of mindfulness as a path that brings the mind back home. Mindfulness of the body, of feelings, of mind, and of objects of mind. When a painful feeling arises, he did not teach us to run away, but he also did not tell us to drown in it. He taught us simply to know, this is painful feeling, and it is here. Just that one sentence, if lit up by mindfulness, is like a small lamp placed right where we are hurting. That light does not make the wound disappear immediately, but it brings the wound out of its lonely darkness. In the Buddha's time, there was a devoted laywoman named Visakha. She made many offerings to the Sangha, and she also enjoyed a prosperous family life with many children and grandchildren. One day, her most beloved granddaughter fell gravely ill and died. For a grandmother, that is not just losing one family member, it is like losing a piece of her own heart. She was so heartbroken that she no longer wished to eat, didn't want to see anyone, and her tears would not stop. Her family urged her to go and pay respect to the Buddha, hoping he could comfort her. When she met the Blessed One, Visakha collapsed at his feet, sobbing, "Bhagavan, my little granddaughter has died. Every time I think of her, my heart feels torn apart." The Buddha did not say, "Stop crying." He did not say, "Everything is impermanent. What's there to be sad about?" Instead, he asked a very unusual question. "Visakha, if here in the city of Savatthi, every day you heard news that one of your relatives had died, how would you feel?" Visakha shuddered. "Bhagavan, if every single day I heard about losing a loved one, I could not bear it. My heart would be shattered." The Buddha looked deeply at her and gently said, "Visakha, you love your granddaughter because you have a heart that knows how to love. But if you expect that everyone you love will never grow old, never fall sick, never die, then you will have to live in endless suffering. Please see that not only your granddaughter, but all beings carry this same nature of impermanence. Your sorrow today is not a sorrow that belongs only to you. It is the sorrow of countless grandmothers, mothers, and fathers in this world." Hearing this, Visakha's tears still flowed, but something inside her shifted. She began to see that her pain was no longer a private sentence life had thrown at her, but a single drop in the great sea of human suffering. She still remembered her granddaughter, still loved her until it hurt, but at the same time a small seed of understanding was planted. I am not the only one. Her pain was now placed under the light of impermanence and loving kindness. It no longer shrank tightly around my granddaughter, but started to open into a wider compassion for all hearts that are grieving. From then on, every time she remembered her granddaughter, instead of only drowning in tears, Visakha practiced sitting quietly, following her breath and whispering in her heart, "I know I am sad. I know this sadness comes from my love. May all those who are losing loved ones like me also suffer less." This was the shift from a sorrow that contracts into a sorrow lit by mindfulness and compassion. The sadness was still there, but it had become the raw material for a wider, deeper, loving kindness. In another story, there was a young monk who was deeply attached to a fellow monastic friend. They ordained together, studied together, practiced together, and went on alms round together. When one of them was ill, the other took care of him. Their brotherhood was very deep. One rainy season, that dear friend fell seriously ill and passed away. The young monk stood beside his friend's body, feeling as if half of himself had just fallen down. In the days that followed, every time he walked on the old paths, saw the tree where they had rested together, the stream where they had drawn water, the rock where they had sat and talked, his heart ached again. He avoided those places, avoided thinking about his friend, and buried himself in chanting more and more sutras, as if he could use sound to fill up the empty space. But the more he avoided, the more the pain smoldered inside. Seeing this, an elder monk in the Sangha called him over and said, "How long can you keep running away? Can you sit down just once and simply breathe with this pain?" Then the elder taught him to sit still, to follow his in-breath and out-breath, and to contemplate the feeling in his heart. "This is painful feeling. It has arisen because I love my friend. Breathing in, I recognize it. Breathing out, I hold it gently with mindfulness." Nothing more, no heavy analysis, just the soft light of kind awareness. In the beginning, every time he sat down, tears would fall again. But this time he did not run. He allowed the wound to be seen, to be named, to breathe. Gradually, he began to see more clearly. Behind the pain of losing his friend was a deep gratitude for having had such a friend in his life at all. He reflected, "My friend is gone, but his mindful steps, his encouraging words, the times we meditated together, all of that is still here in me. I can keep living as a way to continue what was most beautiful in him." From this new way of seeing, the pain began to change color. It was no longer a black hole swallowing everything, but became a quiet stream watering his determination to practice more firmly. Each time he remembered his friend, instead of only crying, he silently vowed, "May this practice be not just for me, but as a gift to you, and to all those who are drifting in birth and death." The wound, open to the light of mindfulness and aspiration, became a gateway for a larger love to walk through. Letting a gentle light touch our wound does not mean we don't cry or don't hurt. Sometimes it is precisely when we sit quietly in silence and allow ourselves to cry mindfully that the wound finally gets to breathe for the first time. The difference is not in the tears, but in this. Are we crying in delusion or crying in awareness? Crying in delusion means letting the wave of emotion sweep us away toward anger and despair. Crying in awareness means crying while clearly knowing, this is pain. It is moving through this body and mind. I am holding it with my breath, with the understanding that all things are impermanent. Once the wound has been touched by the light of mindfulness, the next step is to open a new direction for our love. The Buddha taught that, at its deepest level, grief is love that has lost its object. If we let it circle endlessly around one image, it easily turns into clinging, lamenting, and self-torment. But if we gently guide it to widen, it can become compassion for many others. That is why practitioners often transform their own suffering into a vow. May this pain help me understand the pain of all beings, so I am not ignorant or indifferent to anyone's suffering. When we sit with our own wound and remember how many other hearts are hurting just like this, we are no longer a lonely victim. We become a brother, a sister, a friend to countless beings. Our pain is now connected to a much larger current of love. And in those farewells where words have run out, where things cannot be repaired, there is still one small but very deep thing we can offer: a silent blessing. No need to send it as a message. No need to say it aloud. Just in one quiet moment, we can honestly say to that person in our heart, "May you be at peace wherever you are. May what was beautiful between us become a good seed in both our hearts and not a wound." That blessing does not change the past, but it changes the way our heart carries the past inside it. Instead of holding on to a burning coal, we set it down and keep only a warm ember of gratitude. This too is a way that gentle light touches the wound, the light of letting go, the light of loving kindness no longer limited by what is deserved or not deserved. When we dare to let the light of mindfulness, the light of impermanence, and the light of compassion touch our wounds, we will see them slowly change shape. The cracks are still there, but they are no longer dead ends. They become the stitching lines that make our heart deeper and softer. A deeper, softer heart after all the cracks. When we have walked one full circle of suffering, from a broken heart, through many losses, to the moment we dare to let the light of mindfulness touch our wounds, we often hope that one day everything will go back to how it used to be. But on the path the Buddha taught, a heart that has grown never returns to its original state. It is no longer as innocent as before, but if it is nourished by mindfulness and wisdom, it can become deeper, softer, and more awake. Healing in the Buddha's way is not erasing our memories and not pretending we have never been hurt. Healing is a very quiet process in which our pain is placed under the light of understanding, is allowed to breathe with mindful breathing, and is embraced by compassion. The fire of suffering can burn away what is fake, but for one who truly practices, that very fire melts the heart like a bar of gold, so that the rough parts are skimmed off and what remains is more refined, gentler, and brighter. In the Buddha's time, there is a beautiful story about the ripening of a heart that once broke from being looked down on. It is the story of Venerable Kula Panthaka. When he first joined the Sangha, people saw him as slow-minded. He tried and tried, yet could not memorize even a short verse. His older brother, who was also a monk, felt ashamed in front of the community. Out of that shame, he drove his younger brother out of the monastery, saying that someone like him did not have the capacity to practice. Imagine Kula Panthaka's heart at that moment. He had left his family, given up the lay life to seek the path, hoping to find a way of liberation. And yet right inside the Sangha, the place he thought would be safe, he was rejected by his own brother, branded as useless. For a sensitive person, such humiliation is enough to close the heart completely. He was about to give up the robe and return to lay life. Right then, the Buddha walked by and saw him sitting alone, crying. The Buddha asked, and he told the whole story with all the shame in his heart. The Buddha did not scold him and did not rush to blame the brother either. He simply said very gently, "Pantaka, you are not someone who cannot practice. You only need a way of practice that fits your own capacity." Then the Buddha handed him a small white cloth and taught him to rub the cloth in his hands while repeating a very simple phrase: "Removing defilements, removing defilements." Day after day, Pantaka rubbed the cloth while reciting the phrase. Gradually, his mind gathered into one point. After some time, he saw the white cloth turn dusty and dirty in his hands. In that very moment, like a flash of lightning, he awakened. My mind is just like this, originally clear, but darkened by ignorance, greed, and anger. It is these defilements that cling to it. From there, he began to contemplate more deeply on impermanence and non-self, on what is defiled and what is pure in the mind, and in the end, he attained arahantship. The heart that once shattered from being despised later became the heart of a saint. What is most striking is this: because he had been judged as less than and hurt to the very core, Kalapanthaka understood especially well the suffering of those who are slow, forgetful, or looked down on by others. He did not harden. He did not close his heart to people. He became incredibly gentle and patient. Whenever a novice struggled to learn, he did not scold. He simply smiled warmly, because he himself had once stood in that same place. This is the sign of a deeper, softer heart. Not a heart that has never been hurt, but a heart that, because it has been hurt, knows how to love more, understand more, and judge less. A wound in the past, when lit by mindfulness, is no longer just a tear. It becomes a doorway through which we step into the land of compassion. Another story of the heart softening is the story of Venerable Sona Kolavisa. He had been a wealthy layman, used to a life of comfort. After ordaining, afraid he might easily become lax, he resolved to practice with intense effort. He did walking meditation until the soles of his feet were bleeding, cracked, and burning with pain. Even with his body exhausted, he still believed that the harder he pushed himself, the faster he would reach enlightenment. Eventually, completely worn out and discouraged, he thought about returning to lay life. The Buddha, knowing this, came to speak with him. He asked, "Sona, when you were still a layman, you used to play the lute, didn't you?" Sona answered, "Yes, Blessed One." The Buddha continued, "When you tightened the strings too much, how did it sound?" "Harsh and unpleasant, Blessed One." "And when the strings were too loose, how did it sound then?" "Weak, disconnected, also not good." "So when did the lute sound beautiful?" "When the strings were neither too tight nor too loose, Blessed One, just right." The Buddha looked directly at Sona and taught, "So it is with the effort of a practitioner. Too tight and you fall into harsh asceticism. Body and mind are exhausted. Too loose and you fall into laziness and carelessness, making no progress. The right way is the middle path, not forcing yourself until you break, and not letting yourself drift without direction." That teaching not only helped Sona adjust his practice, it also softened a heart that had been very hard on itself. Before that, he treated himself like a soldier pushed into battle. One mistake and he would scold himself. A little tiredness and he would despise himself. After the Buddha's reminder, he learned to walk the path with both steadiness and gentleness. He began to understand that true diligence always walks together with compassion, especially compassion for oneself. Having learned this lesson with his whole body and mind torn and bleeding, Sona also became softer with others. He no longer looked down on those who were tired or discouraged, because he himself had once nearly given up, had once walked through that same place of exhaustion. From being too strict, he became a teacher who knew how to balance reminding and embracing, firmness and kindness. Once again we see, whatever has cracked our heart in the past, if illuminated by wisdom, can make that heart softer, more understanding, rather than numb. Looking back, we can see a clear thread running through the teachings. Any suffering, if lived fully in mindfulness, can become fertilizer for the four immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Having gone through brokenness and loss, and having dared to sit still and let mindfulness touch our wounds, we naturally find it easier to give rise to loving kindness. When we see someone in pain, we no longer throw out a quick, "You'll be fine," but know how to sit down, stay beside them, and truly listen. Compassion also arises more easily. When we see another suffering, we remember our own, and our heart softens with the wish to support them. We rejoice more in others' happiness with less jealousy, because we now know how fragile every joy is. And then we learn equanimity, to put down some of the old stories, to forgive those who once hurt us, because we see that everyone is struggling in their own ignorance. A deeper, softer heart is not some distant, holy thing. It is a very human heart that still knows sadness, joy, and trembling, but now has an extra layer of understanding supporting it from within. It understands that happiness does not lie in life always going according to our wishes, but in our ability to move through things that go against our wishes with less resentment and more gratitude. It understands that love is no longer about gripping and owning, but about walking together as far as we can, and when we must part, being able to bow to one another with a silent blessing in our heart. In the end, what matters most is not that we have never suffered, but who we become because of our suffering. If, after our heart breaks, we only grow harder and colder, then our pain has only taken more from us. But if, after our breaking, we find ourselves listening more, speaking more gently to others and to ourselves, and cherishing ordinary days more deeply, then we can say our pain was not wasted. And perhaps this is the quiet invitation that life offers to every heart. When you cannot avoid being wounded, please do not let those wounds make you hard. Let them make you softer, deeper, more awake. When we can live like that, our heart, even with its cracks, becomes the very place with the most openings for the light to enter. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this video. If there was a sentence today that gently touched your heart, you can let me know with a like, a short comment, or by sharing this video with someone who may need a little support right now. And if you'd like to have a few minutes each day to listen to the Buddha's words, you're warmly invited to subscribe to Buddha's Loving Words and turn on the notification bell. I look forward to seeing you again in the next videos.
From the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for supporting Buddha's Loving Words. May the teachings of the Buddha continue to touch every heart, bringing peace and happiness.